All right, our guest today has 67 issued patents and over 30 patents pending. 2018, he founded Vecna Robotics, now a global leader in autonomous solutions for the logistics industry. I'd like to welcome Daniel Theobald. Welcome, Dan.
Hey, thanks. Great to be here.
Great to have you here, Daniel. And to kick things off, since it's Manufacturing Happy Hour, I'm sure since this is a compilation episode, people are hearing me say this over and over, but we love kicking it off as if we're having a conversation over a drink. Simple terms, right? So if you could describe Vecna Robotics from that standpoint, that would be a great way to kick us off.
Yeah, very simply, Vecna Robotics is the world leader in high-capacity AMRs. So think driverless forklifts, driverless tuggers, things that make it easier for humans to do what humans do well and not have to worry about the boring, dangerous job sometimes of carrying stuff all the way across the warehouse repeatedly again and again and again.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, we're currently right now, we're at the Autonomous Mobile Robots and Logistics Conference, and we're seeing a lot of different AMR solutions. But I think one of the discussions that you just literally gave an hour-long kind of keynote presentation on was this idea of interoperability for AMRs. Why is the conversation so important now between communication and collaboration between other devices and not just, its own individual platform? Because for me, I always thought of AMRs as their own independent solutions, own independent simulations, their own mapping, their own, sensors and hardware.
Yep.
Why interoperability?
Well, and you nailed it. I mean, that's where industries start, right? A brand new industry, you got a lot of companies coming into it and they'll build proprietary solutions to solve all these problems. But as the industry starts to mature, what you find is it needs to start to work together. So the other hat I wear is actually co-founder and president of MassRobotics.
Mm-hmm.
And MassRobotics is an organization that specifically was founded to try and help the industry solve some of these problems. Why does interoperability matter? Well, imagine if we were still back in the day with computers where you could only buy software from the company that actually built your computer hardware. Most people don't remember that, but that's the way it used to be. And we were never going to get to a point where you could go online and download an app from anywhere and have it work on your hardware until there was some standards that allowed that to happen. So that's the whole point, is sharing information is important. And we're never going to unlock the full value of robotics and AMRs if they're a black box.
Absolutely. So when we're looking at, sharing of information, it's not just benefiting the end user. It's not just benefiting FedEx, who has 4 or 5 different AMRs on their floor right now. It's benefiting all the individual manufacturers as well, because they can build on each other's solutions.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. There tends to be this evolution we see in industries where there is sort of what I would call the short-sighted phase, where people think, oh, we've got special sauce and we're going to own it. Right?
Yeah.
We're going to own all of it. And what they oftentimes fail to understand is that this is a multi-trillion-dollar industry if we work together and unlock the value that can be provided. So it's not a zero-sum game. And so those vendors who lean into this and provide solutions that do play nicely in the ecosystem are going to be more successful. It was funny as we were doing this panel earlier, I think all of us felt like we were in the principal's office when Aaron from FedEx was saying, I'm serious about this. We will not buy your solution if it doesn't interoperate. So we're now in this new phase where it is serious. It needs to be taken into account. And the good news is it unlocks huge value if we work together to share just very basic information.
Yeah, Aaron definitely drove that point home. In fact, I tweeted that quote when he brought it up. So if there's anything I took away from that presentation, it was that. You mentioned it a moment ago as well. MassRobotics as well. Tell us a little bit more about that, because I'm sure people would be interested in knowing about your other, let's say, side hustle, your other focus as well.
Yeah, so MassRobotics is an amazing organization, and I can just tell you how proud I am of everybody in the industry who's come together to make that happen. There was a small number of us that early on identified the need for it, but it would not have happened without lots and lots of people coming together. And the goal of MassRobotics is really threefold. One, to help promote and educate the next generation of STEM talent huge problem we're facing here in this country. We're falling way behind. And so getting kids interested in technology is important, and robotics is a great way to do that. The second mission is around connecting innovators, end users, and investors in a meaningful conversation. One of the biggest problems I observed early on is you had a lot of really talented people coming out of universities who were excited about robots, and they'd go and they'd build really cool robots that did really worthless things, right? Because they didn't have that connection to real end users. So MassRobotics acts as a convener to try and bring in the big end users and the small innovative startups.
So what companies, as we're listening to this, and there's dozens of different manufacturers and companies who listen to these podcasts, what companies should look into MassRobotics and being a part of that organization? I mean,
anyone involved in the mobile robotics industry, in any, really robotics and connected devices is what it's all about. It's called MassRobotics. The idea there is that we're trying to work for the mass deployment of this technology and make it happen in a way that benefits the human race as a whole. It's something where robotics companies should be involved, and users who need to use robotics companies should be involved, investors and that whole financial segment should be involved, because it really takes all those pieces coming together, at the right place and the right time to help move this forward. And so then the third part of MassRobotics' mission is this idea of standards and trying to provide the sort of the willpower that no individual company would ever have to actually get some of this stuff done. And it was interesting when we first started the MassRobotics Interoperability Working Group, tons of skepticism and tons of people who are, basically fighting against it.
Just this idea of no one wants to work together, everyone wants to play on their own home turf.
That's right. But once we sort of got it over this threshold of, no, guys, this is going to happen. It's happening. No, it's really happening. And then it sort of switched from, trying to be an obstacle in many cases to actually saying, oh crap, we better get on board with this or we're going to get left behind.
The train's leaving town.
Train's leaving town. And if we are not playing nicely at this point, we're very quickly going to be left on the outside looking in. And, again, Aaron tried to make that point very strongly, that if you're not willing to collaborate and cooperate, this industry isn't going to be a great place for you long term.
Yeah. Aaron's quote, just for people listening, the robot manufacturers need to make a decision one way or another on interoperability because there probably won't be a second chance.
Yeah. So the answer, I think, should be obvious there.
Well, hey, before we wrap, I do have another question, kind of a personal question as well. And this is much a leadership podcast. This is a manufacturing podcast. And I've got a question for you about leading through growth, right? A little actionable advice to give the folks listening before we wrap, in that you've raised something like $60 million in venture capital over the past couple of years. You've been growing quickly. How have you been managing through that, leading through that, when it's not only a combination of technology, but you have the people aspect about it as well?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. I think it's really important anytime we talk about robotics to remember that people are the point. It can be easy to feel like people are a problem and robots are an answer to that problem. And that is not the right way to look at it. And when you look at it that way, you end up creating issues that get in the way of success. People are the point. They're why we do everything we do. And we always try and look at robotics as a way to empower people, to allow people to do more than ever before. People are amazing. In Elon Musk's quote, when the Model 3 factory was, sort of not delivering, was very instrumental here. Instructive here. He said, "We made a mistake. Correction, I made a mistake. We tried to over-automate. People are underrated." And the reason for that is Hollywood's kind of ruined us with respect to robots. We think of robots as these omniscient, superhuman
Good point.
things. Yeah. But they're not. Robots are the dumbest contributors to your company's success you will ever have. They are very, very slightly above a basic machine. So humans are needed to be part of that solution. And the companies that do the job of best integrating the strengths of humans and the strengths of robots are the ones that are going to give you resilient, flexible, scalable solutions. Otherwise, it's science projects. And, I heard somebody saying, well, there's a lot of science projects out there. and there are. And getting out in the real world and dealing with the exceptions that happen on a daily basis is something that you need humans to be a part of.
I love that quote. People are not the problem. They are the point.
Yeah.
And I think the sooner manufacturers and companies start realizing that that's the way you need to look at things, they're going to be more successful.
That's why we do everything we do, right? At the end of the day, it's a human being who is clicking on their screen to order that product that starts this whole cycle. And if we don't acknowledge that, then I think we go down a path that maybe none of us want to end up on.
Well, love the background, love the pragmatic advice across the board. What's the best way to connect with Vecna Robotics?
Yeah, if you want to go to our website, vecnarobotics.com, we're certainly happy to have you reach out to me through LinkedIn, Daniel Theobald at Vecna Robotics. Happy to have a conversation. It oftentimes surprises me that people don't reach out more because sometimes we don't realize that they're all just people. We're all people, and we're here, and we've got this great thing called the internet. So
we're passionate about this industry.
Yeah, connect with us.
Well, for those who haven't picked it up, this is Daniel's a very accessible individual, so make sure to reach out. And Daniel, we just want to thank you for taking the time to jump on the show.
Hey, thanks for doing this. Great job.
Cheers.